Hey, good evening. I'm Gadi Schwartz coming to you from Los Angeles. And everything we know about the art of diplomacy was rewritten today as the president of the United States told off Ukraine's president before kicking him out of the White House.
Your country is in big trouble.
Wait a
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this.
All that happening in full view of the camera. So where does this leave peace talks? And what about the mineral deal that was supposed to be signed today?
Can Zelensky do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
Plus, the latest on the mysterious death of actor Gene Hackman and his wife in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this isn't a scene from some disaster movie you're looking at. Those are real-life window washers, literally hanging on for dear life. Those are just some of the stories we are following tonight. There is a lot more to unpack. So let's get going, because this is Stay Tuned Now.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
That was the scolding heard round the world. What went down in the White House, the Trump-Vance tag team berating of Zelensky, happening full view of the cameras, was seismic enough to have maybe just shifted international relations as we know them. And tonight, the two empty podiums at the White House say it all. No deal, no peace. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky asked to leave the White House with the future of his country very much in question over what the Trump administration is calling disrespect. Now, what this means for the war in Ukraine now in its third year, we're going to get into all that. But what sparked this? What set the president and the vice president off? What did Zelensky say that they saw as disrespectful? Well, seeing a quick clip is one thing on the internet, but here is the entire unedited back and forth so you can see it all and decide for yourself, starting with when Zelensky seemed to question Vance on the definition of diplomacy.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
a lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire
today.
meeting, have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I
on
know.
soldiers.
Don't- don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
is-
with me.
It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden, because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think?
What's this negotiation?
This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Lots to unpack there. NBC's Yamiche Alcindor joins us now from Washington. Yamiche, what happened right after that went down?
Well, first of all, of course, that was an extraordinary exchange. We've never really seen anything like that in the Oval Office, with the President of the United States really getting into a combative and testy exchange with the President of Ukraine. After the cameras left the room, White House officials tell me that the President huddled with his advisors and decided that President Zelensky needed to leave the White House in short order, as the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor were telling Zelensky he needed to leave along with Ukrainian officials. The President went online and posted that Zelensky was not ready for peace and that he could come back when he was ready for peace. The White House also says that Ukrainian officials were trying to stay and continue meetings because they were going to sign a rare earth minerals deal as well as hold a press conference. But the President of the United States and White House officials said they did not want to do that, and they told the Ukrainians they had to leave, and they went out the door. I'm told now that the President is possibly open to Zelensky coming back at some point, and he told reporters on the White House South Lawn as he was getting on a plane to go to Florida that he was open to Zelensky talking about it, but he believed that Zelensky right now is not ready for peace. And instead, he said that the president of Russia is actually the one who wants peace and wants the fighting to stop. So really a tough day here at the White House, an extraordinary day at the White House. And President Zelensky is also saying that while he doesn't like the way that things went, he's saying that he didn't think he did anything wrong. Gabe?
Yeah, we just saw him coming out and getting in that SUV. It looks like right after leaving the White House in that SUV, Zelensky started tweeting, "Thank you to America, thank you to the president," starting to give interviews with the same kind of tone. Like, what's he saying right now?
Well, Gadi, after this meeting, the other thing that happened was that President Zelensky went and not too far from the White House did an interview with Fox News where he talked about the fact that he still wants to make a deal with the White House, with President Trump, but that he has to also understand that he believes that President Putin is someone that isn't someone that he can trust. Take a listen to more of that interview.
I respect President and I respect American people. And if, I don't know, if I think that we have to be very open and very honest. And I'm not sure that we did something bad.
So there was President Zelensky saying he doesn't believe that he did anything wrong. It's also important to note that part of this blow-up was because President Zelensky was saying that he had a ceasefire deal with President Putin in the past, and he still invaded and took over Crimea. And he was telling President Trump and Vice President Vance that he didn't believe that he could trust President Putin to have that ceasefire. But of course, President Trump said those were other presidents that were in office when that ceasefire was broken, and that he believes President Putin would not break a deal if he made it with him. So a lot to unpack here. We're not sure what the timeline is going to be of whether or not these conversations, these sort of disagreements continue, because President Trump is saying that he is open still to speaking with Zelensky, but just not clear when any of that's going to happen. What is clear is that this was very much a volatile day at the White House, Gadi.
Yamiche, thanks so much. Now to reaction around the world. The former president of France calling it a new era in geopolitics, and that the sitting United States president is no longer our ally. It is Saturday out in Russia, and the headline there translated into scandal at the White House. Inside the Oval Office, CNN capturing this moment. That is Ukraine's ambassador making the universal sign of what is happening right now. Richard Engel with the reaction from Ukraine tonight.
Gadi, this was an unmitigated disaster for Ukraine, for President Zelensky. Ukrainians realize that their country is in a very weak position right now. They've been watching this peace process led by President Trump from the beginning and watched it with great concern, because they've seen President Trump first begin negotiations with Russia and call Zelensky an unelected dictator. He is not a dictator, and he is elected. They said that he has no support. President Trump said that it was Ukraine that started the war, which many people in that country found deeply offensive. I just came back from Ukraine. And now they're watching President Zelensky, who went to the White House, went to President Trump's office to sign a somewhat controversial mineral deal in Ukraine. People didn't know, still don't know the exact terms of this. They felt that President Zelensky had already been summoned to the United States to sign away the country's natural resources. He was about to do it, but because President Trump and Vice President Vance didn't like the way he was doing it, now Ukraine risks being cut off completely. It all makes Ukrainians feel incredibly vulnerable. Here in Europe, that's where I am right now, having just left Ukraine, people are watching this and watching how President Trump is treating his allies, particularly treating his allies at a time of need. And when they saw President Macron of France go to the White House, navigated a visit with President Trump, had success. They were complimenting each other. They were physically touching each other. That trip seemed to have gone well. But France is not asking anything right now from President Trump or the United States. Zelensky needs American support for his survival. And he was just browbeaten, knocked down, humiliated. That means makes Ukraine nervous, but it also makes America's allies nervous as they watch how America treats people who are other allies and dependent on American support.
Richard Engel, thank you so much. And joining us now is Michael O'Hanlon from the Brookings Institute and Michael Allen, who worked in foreign policy under George W. Bush. Welcome to both Michaels here. It doesn't matter if you follow geopolitics very closely or not. You see that, and then the word humiliation comes to mind. We just heard it from Richard Engel there. Does this type of statecraft happen a lot and we just don't see it in public? Or was this as off the rails as it looked? And we'll start with you, O'Hanlon.
Well, greetings. Yes, quite a day. You know, President Trump is one of a kind. And I don't want to say that what happened today happens normally, but I do think that tough conversations happen behind closed doors quite a bit. And I'm still hopeful, despite the horror of watching this and the spectacle, I'm still hopeful that President Trump's final comment of the day, that Zelensky can come back when he's ready for peace, is something we should all hold on to if we want this thing to go forward and want to believe we can still see a U.S.-Ukraine partnership. I've been a strong supporter of Ukraine throughout this. I'm often a critic of President Trump. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure we have to view today as blowing everything up. There was still a read to hold on to at the end of the conversation. And one more thing I'll say, I look forward to the other Michael's comments to frame this, but President Zelensky is a great guy, and he's an amazing, admirable leader, courageous people, but he did not handle that situation well, because we know who Donald Trump is and we know how he reacts in these kinds of situations. You don't pick that fight. So let's just all calm down. Hope tomorrow's a better day. President Trump has said we can have another conversation. I think that's the thing to hold on to. Amazingly dramatic television, but I'm hoping this winds up being today's news, this week's news, but something we can move beyond in March.
And Michael Allen, I mean, Trump kept saying, you don't have the cards, you don't have the cards. That's when that was going down. Now, as the fallout continues across the world and people are starting to wonder where he stands and how his standing is reflected across the world, what cards does he have? How is this going to affect his standing going forward?
Well, I think he was on a no-fail mission today, and he came up well short. He has to keep the United States on side. We're the superpower. We're the ones that have funded his military. And I don't think he was very disciplined throughout the 40 minutes that preceded the blow-up. I think he was way too loose. I think he was trying to debate the president. And I think he didn't read the room correctly. And eventually it led to a blow-up. Now, whether it was too much of a blow-up and whether we unduly embarrassed him, that's definitely up for discussion. But I thought that he had won the week. He had come from last week where he was being called a dictator to this week. President Trump's rhetoric was better. We were going to get a minerals deal. And even during the press conference, Trump said, we're going to continue to send you military assistance. And so for us, for Ukraine, to be on the 1 yard line of a big win and fumble the ball is a huge error on his part. He's a politician. He's got to understand that Trump is barely with him on Ukraine, and everything he was getting this week was good news for him, and he should have taken the win.
And yet the situation that we find ourselves in is one where, he is possibly going to go back to Ukraine, and he's going to be talking to his military leaders. Is there a chance that, I don't know, he could lose his leadership role in Ukraine after this? O'Hanlon.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's also a good chance that Ukrainians will rally around him because he was treated badly today. I agree with the other Michael and my earlier comments. I said that I don't think President Zelensky handled this well, but the notion of leading a country that has suffered tens of thousands of fatalities, hundreds of thousands of wounded because of an unprovoked, unjustifiable Russian aggression, and then to have the most powerful person on earth and his vice president treating you in this way, it's not particularly fair. And I don't think Ukrainians are likely to blame Zelensky. We'll find out. We'll see how they react. I haven't been to Ukraine in a year and a half. But what I would say is that we know what Trump's like, and we know the right way to try to deal with him. And President Zelensky, unfortunately, did not take that approach today. I'm not defending Trump in any way, shape, or form, but Zelensky sort of got into the dynamic he should have avoided.
And Michael Allen, what does this do to Trump's standing on the world stage right now?
Well, I think he'll be subjected to a number of negative commentaries from Europe and, of course, the Democratic Party here. But fundamentally, I think here's what this dispute is about. Donald Trump believes that he can be equidistant between the two parties in the middle, and he needs to be that way to be a fair broker. And Zelensky is looking at this and saying, we were invaded. It's Putin that's the guilty party. You should be on our side. And I think those are great points for Zelensky to make. It makes sense to me, but he probably should have made all of those arguments in private. I think he really tried to debate the president in an open setting. By the way, it didn't work last week when he was trying to message Ukraine all across the world, and it doesn't work when you're in the Oval Office in front of the media. He should have been more disciplined. He should have said thank you. He should have talked about what he talked about, but he didn't need to repeat and argue his case over and over for security assurances. Trump's clearly not ready to issue those today. Those would be later in the negotiation. He had a great week. He could have just symbolically said to the world, look, I'm here with the United States and we're united again. But instead, things went awry. I wish he had been more disciplined like Netanyahu, Starmer, and Macron, who came in tight and knew what they needed and what they wanted and got out unscathed. Here, I think this was an undisciplined performance.
And Michael O'Hanlon, does he have any options other than to just sign whatever agreement, whatever mineral agreement or any other agreement that the United States puts in front of him right now? Can he go to Europe and possibly defend Ukraine without the United States, or is he backed into even more of a corner after all of this?
He doesn't want to lose the United States. You know, I feel bad. Michael and I think, are both making what I hope are valid points about how President Zelensky could have handled this differently and how he should have handled this differently. But let's also remember, this is a guy who's been at war for 3 years, leading a people that have been beleaguered and under bombardment and, a savage attack for 3 years. He himself is often at personal risk. Putin's been known to want to kill him. You know, he comes here and he's speaking in English, which is not his native language. I've met President Zelensky. He's a very charming person, but English is not his first language. And he's trying to contend with not only President Trump, but J.D. Vance. So he's in a tough spot. He should have handled it differently, but my heart goes out to him. He's an amazing, charismatic leader who's kept his country together for all this time, but he still needs the United States. That's the bottom line. Yes, Europe might be able to keep him afloat, hold on to much of his country, prevent a complete Russian victory, but he doesn't want to be in that position. He needs to be with the United States.
Yeah, and he seems to be on quite the apology, or at least the thank you tour. A little bit ago, Zelensky was on Fox. He was talking about the relationship that Ukraine has with the United States. Let's just take a look at this.
Do you think your relationship with Donald Trump, President Trump, after today, can be salvaged?
Yes, of course, because it's relations more than two presidents. It's the historical relations, strong relations between our people. And that's why I always began with to thank your people from our people. And this is the most important. And of course, thankful to President and of course to Congress, but first of all to your people. Your people helped to save our people.
So, Michael Allen, is this enough? Is groveling at this point going to be enough to salvage the relationship?
I think we can put this back together again. I'm definitely with Michael O'Hanlon in the sense that the president has sort of defined a way to get back into this and to sign the minerals deal. I don't want him to grovel. I don't want him to issue an abject apology, but he could probably say a little bit more about how he regrets the way it all went down. He regrets that this got a little bit too public. He was going in over and over a course of 40 minutes, I think, trying to score points. And I think that's just something that got him in a little bit of trouble in the end. I think he can show some sort of contrition without embarrassing himself or groveling, and then hopefully he can get out of the penalty box and we can get back down to business within the next few days.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see if things are going to turn into a debate or just, a photo op. In this day and age, you just never know. Michael Allen, thank you so very much for being with us tonight and offering insight on such a crazy, crazy incident. Meanwhile, the DOGE chainsaw continues to grind through the federal government. Today, hundreds of workers over at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, lost their jobs. We are talking meteorologists, climate scientists, and those who work with pretty much everything weather and climate related, like tracking and predicting storms, defending against deadly natural disasters. Joining us right now is Tom DeLiberto, one of the workers at NOAA who was just laid off. Tom, I'm really sorry about what happened yesterday, I believe, is when you got the news. What were you told, and what do you think NOAA is going to be like after these cuts?
Yeah, so yesterday at about 3:45, I and approximately 600 to 800 other NOAA employees got a boilerplate email similar to what we've seen at other agencies that said, I'm a probationary employee. They can review my performance and that my abilities and skills no longer meet the agency's needs, which is all very, very silly and bunk compared to really anyone who got fired yesterday. And it's a huge deal. This hit every aspect of NOAA, from the weather to climate to folks who develop models to folks who make sure our oceans are safe and make sure ecosystems are healthy. No part of NOAA was left untouched.
And how do you think it's going to be able to operate going forward here?
Well, it's simple. Today, we're less safe than we were yesterday. You cannot fire this many people at NOAA and not expect some sort of degradation in services provided. And we've already seen that. A weather forecast office in Alaska said that they're no longer launching weather balloons. We use those weather balloons and the data they get to go right into the models that we use, that forecasters use to get a better understanding of our atmosphere. You remove that weather balloon, you're degrading the weather models themselves. We had multiple members who actually run the models at NOAA fired yesterday. So there's no way around it. And as we get into severe weather season across the plains, as we get into the hurricane season this summer, we're asking the really dedicated folks still left at NOAA to do so much work with less people. And you're just asking for something horrible to happen.
And do you think that will happen soon, or is this going to happen down the road? Or is there any chance that they might be able to, I don't know, automate some of these systems?
You know, I hope that nothing bad happens ever. The reason that all of us work at NOAA is because we're trying to help make sure nothing bad happens to Americans. That's literally the reason why all of us work at NOAA. And the thing is, we don't know when things might break down, but we're stressing the system. And none of us at NOAA, none of us who used to work at NOAA want to hear that some community in the United States is the area that suffers the break of when you're stressing NOAA this much. And when it comes to automation, you can automate some things, but the key thing is you can't automate forecasts. And you can't automate the ideas that help push NOAA into the future when it comes to developing more models. And what we've seen is basically all of those folks with those fresh new ideas got completely wiped out at NOAA. And that's a horrible thing. It's putting us further behind the rest of the world when it comes to developing our weather and climate models. And it's just a horrible thing to happen. And I can't understand why this would be in anyone's understanding for what could make America great.
Tom DeLiberto, again, thank you so much for walking us through this. And I know it's difficult, but the important story to be told. Tom, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And here's some of the other headlines that we're watching. Guilty today on all charges, including first-degree murder. Joseph Choba way back in 2023. Also, mom, she survived. Now, prosecutors say the crime was motivated by anti-Muslim hate after the Israeli-Hamas war. Chuba now faces life behind bars. And President Trump is expected to sign an order making English the official language of the United States. Now, this is the first time in history that the country would have an official language, even though the majority of the states have already designated English as such. It's still not clear when Trump's going to sign that executive order. And a South Carolina man was killed by a booby trap this week, and his own family member was behind it. Now, Jordan Dove was killed by a shotgun contraption, which was set off when he entered an empty house. Police say they've arrested the family member responsible. It appears the trap was intended to be aimed at law enforcement. And with the sun setting tonight, the holy month of Ramadan begins. The start of the month traditionally depends on the sighting of the crescent moon, and Muslims around the world are celebrating it as a time for increased worship and reflection with daily fasting from dawn to dusk. And measles cases in Texas continue to grow, with officials there saying cases have risen to 146. That is up 22 cases from just Tuesday. An unvaccinated child died in Texas earlier this week in what's now the largest outbreak there in 30 years. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, we are learning more tonight about the death of actor Gene Hackman, why officials say he might have been dead for more than a week. Plus, the Jeffrey Epstein files have finally dropped 5 years after his death. So why are there still so many unanswered questions? Well, that's all just ahead, so stay tuned. And welcome back. The death of legendary actor Gene Hackman still has a lot of people asking questions. And earlier today, investigators in New Mexico gave an update on what might have happened to Hackman and his wife.
Both individuals tested negative for carbon monoxide. An initial interrogation was conducted of Mr. Hackman's pacemaker. This revealed that his last event was recorded on February 17, 2025.
That would suggest that Hackman might have been dead for quite some time before he was found. But at this point, investigators don't know for sure. Let's bring in Dana Griffin to talk a little bit more about this. So, Dana, the sheriff there saying no signs of foul play, but the deaths are suspicious. Like, what is the difference between the two, and have we gotten any clarity?
Yeah, so foul play is something nefarious, whether it's murder, suicide, something like that. Suspicious means that you can't quite pinpoint exactly how someone died, so you don't have an exact cause, but it is suspicious because you just can't pinpoint what happened. That's why they are taking prescription pills, they've taken cell phones, they've taken a 2025 monthly planner to try to help them piece together any clues that may, solve this mystery, because right now there's still a lot of head scratchers. We know that the couple did not die from carbon monoxide poisoning. So what happened? We just don't know at this point yet. Gadi?
And there are a lot of details about what police found inside there, the sheriff's department found inside. And unfortunately, it's 2025. Like, the speculation online is rampant. There's some really wild theories out there. But is there a leading theory that's starting to emerge from, I don't know, maybe authorities on what might have happened if this was accidental or if this was possibly natural?
The only thing that investigators have pointed to is potential falls, because both victims were found on the ground, separate rooms. And in one case with Betsy, she was in the bathroom. There was a heater next to her head. And the way that it was positioned, they felt like maybe she had fallen abruptly. And also with Gene Hackman, he had sunglasses and his cane nearby. So a fall, but what caused that fall is still the big mystery. Was this a natural? Was this medical? But the thing is, you've got two people, 30 plus years age difference, different medical histories in two separate rooms. It's a big puzzle. Gadi?
Yeah. And again, I mean, Gene Hackman, a fall in your 90s is very different than a fall when you're a lot younger. Something to consider there. Dana, thank you so much. And coming up, the new administration has been saying new Jeffrey Epstein files are going to be coming out, but what wasn't in them has a lot of people outraged. We're going to talk about that, but first, you got to see this. These are a couple of window washers in New York City. They had a terrifying morning. You can see here, they're going to zoom in. Yeah, that's scaffolding caught in the wind, starting to spin uncontrollably. The workers were cleaning outside the 78th floor of that luxury Manhattan high-rise. To make matters worse, neither of the men inside of there were secured to that rig. The spinning got so intense, it started to smash into the building. causing glass to fall way down to the street below. Luckily, somehow, no one was hurt. Firefighters were able to save both of those men. Huh, what a close call. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. All right, so diving into these pictures coming out of the White House that you might have already seen, a group of conservative social media influencers leaving the White House with binders in their hands. Now, if you zoom in a little bit closer, you can see that those say the Epstein Files Phase 1. So did the world learn a lot more from these new documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case?
What's interesting is we're all waiting for bombshells, we're all waiting for juicy stuff, and that's not what's in this binder. That's not what's in this binder at all. And that's exactly how the Attorney General presented it to us.
Okay, so here's the thing. The people that got the binders, like the person you just heard, they're not mad at the president. They're not mad at the Attorney General Pam Bondi or whoever gave them that binder, but instead they are blaming the, quote, evil deep state, who they say is allegedly withholding all the real information. Sarah Fitzpatrick joins us now. She's a senior investigative reporter for NBC. She's been following the Epstein case for years now. Okay, Sarah, so Trump has been promising these files for a while. Administration has been saying that we're going to see them. What is this binder thing that we just saw happen?
Gadi, it's honestly an excellent question, and the answer is we're still trying to figure it out. Yesterday, we saw, these documents be released. It was in a very quick fashion. It's unclear what the timeline was about how long this had been planned. But what we saw was no new information, truly, that was released into the public domain. This was all information that had previously been available in court filings, in civil litigation, presented in front of a jury over many days in court. And so what I think happened here, or what we believe may have happened here, is that there was a kind of collision between the online conspiracy theorists and those who have, around the Trump administration that have discussed those theories and reality. And so you saw this presentation of information as if it was new, but it was in fact, in many cases, very old. I spoke to one Justice Department official who said only on background that they perceived that the timing and the purpose of this release yesterday was intended as a distraction from other matters. Exactly what those other matters are, it's unclear. Of course, yesterday, as you mentioned, we had the Tate brothers release, which of course has received a lot of criticism around the country. But it was definitely something that I think was intended to get a lot of attention, but not provide any new and substantive facts. Gadi?
And yet, on the right side of influence, you have a lot of influencers that are saying, hey, we want to see the details. We saw some sort of letter go or a memo go from Bondi over to the FBI and Kash Patel, strongly worded, it looked like get us the rest of the details by, I believe, tomorrow. That was yesterday. Today is today. Have we seen anything new?
No, we haven't seen anything new. It's been oddly silent, and we have been asking questions at the White House, at DOJ, et cetera. It is clear, though, from that letter that you point out, Gadi, that there appears to be a setup of some kind of conflict between the new leadership of the Trump Justice Department and the FBI. Of course, the FBI in New York has been investigating Epstein in various ways in recent years. We had investigations into Epstein himself, into his alleged co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell that went to trial. And then there were other ongoing investigations into multiple other alleged co-conspirators, women that were both victims and employees of Epstein that may have contributed to this scheme and enabling the scheme, as well as Prince Andrew. So there are other materials that exist, but they are unlikely to ever see the release because of federal laws against releasing the information about victims and other matters.
To be continued then. Thank you so much, Sarah. And here are some of the stories that are happening out west that we're following. The former LA Fire Department Chief, Kristen Crawley, is appealing her dismissal. She was let go from her job after a pretty heated back and forth with the mayor over how the city responded to the wildfires here. Her appeal required 2/3 of the city council's vote to succeed. Two men in Fresno, California are accused of harassing local businesses while pretending to be ICE agents. Authorities say the two were filming their confrontations with the public to post on social media. This comes not long after actual ICE officers raided the nearby area. Police say they arrested the men who were cited and released. And firefighters put out a huge fire out in North Dakota. A witness video shows massive flames and smoke fuming before the fire was put out around 3 hours. Luckily, no one was hurt, and they're still trying to figure out what caused it. And one of the most controversial people on the internet is back in the United States today. Social media influencer Andrew Tate, who has been under investigation for human trafficking out in Romania. He landed in Florida with his brother yesterday, and both men have been facing some very serious international charges, which they deny. And when the brothers touched down in Florida, Governor DeSantis said he didn't want them there.
No, Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct in the area.
But some of the Trump administration might disagree. Earlier this month, the Financial Times reported that U.S. officials, including Trump's special envoy, brought up the Tate's case to Romanian officials a few weeks ago. Trump says he knows nothing about it, and NBC News has not been able to independently verify that reporting. So what is going on here? And joining us now is Matt Shea, who literally wrote the book on the Tate brothers called Clown World, 4 years inside Andrew Tate's manosphere. All right, Matt, for those who live outside of the manosphere, like, who are these guys? Give us a primer.
So Andrew Tate is essentially a misogynist influencer who at one point was arguably the most famous man in the world, one of the most viewed people on TikTok, on X. And he's credited with essentially radicalizing an entire generation of young men towards the far right, not just to misogynistic views, but also to distrusting the media, democratic institutions, and, the liberal, quote, woke agenda in general. He's also someone who's accused of incredibly serious crimes of human trafficking, rape, and physical abuse, allegations which he denies. But there's a ongoing investigation in Romania into Andrew Tate and his brother for human trafficking, in which over a dozen victims, alleged victims, are named. One was as young as 15 in the indictment. And he's simultaneously facing a civil case in the UK and also a criminal case in the UK where police are investigating him for sexual misconduct there as well. In fact, there's an extradition treaty between an extradition agreement between the UK and Romania that when he completes his trial in Romania, that he will be extradited to the UK to stand trial for sexual misconduct there.
And there's a lot of speculation online right now about whether there's any connection to the Trump administration. But is there actual overlap between Andrew Tate and President Donald Trump?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So, I mean, first of all, Paul Ingracia was Andrew Tate's lawyer who represented him in this human trafficking case. He is now one of the top White House officials. He was the White House liaison to the Department of Justice. He's now been reassigned to the Department of Homeland Security. He's someone who said that the Tates are totally innocent, that they've been sacrificed, for not agreeing with the woke agenda. Donald Trump Jr. is a fan of the Tates, a friend of Andrew Tate, has said that his detention in Romania is absolute insanity. One of the DOGE employees, Elon Musk's DOGE employees, appears to be a Tate fan. And this alliance has been in the making for a long time, but it recently reached a head when we actually saw Trump's special envoy to Romania, Richard Grenell, essentially pressure the Romanian government to remove the travel restrictions on Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate. So just to be clear, these guys are under travel restrictions while they are being investigated for human trafficking. Okay, so obviously, if someone was under investigation for those similar crimes in the U.S., they wouldn't be allowed to leave the country, right? But the U.S. has pressured the Romanian authorities to allow them to travel to the U.S. So the big question is, why would the Trump administration invite someone being investigated for serious crimes of human trafficking and rape to the U.S.?
And if Romania does want him back under arrest in that country, like, how does extradition work? We've got an extradition treaty with Romania, right? Or at least we did. What does the future look like here?
Oh, well, I mean, at face value, him and his brother are just allowed to travel to the U.S., but will have to return to Romania when summoned by the courts there. Now, what to watch for now is what would happen if the Romanian courts summon them back to Romania and they refuse to go, would the U.S. extradite them is the question. Now, we have no reason to believe that they wouldn't. I mean, that would be a whole new level of unprecedented insanity. But yeah, I mean, there would have to be a very valid reason. There would have to be an extradition hearing as to why the U.S. wouldn't be extraditing them back to Romania to stand trial for human trafficking. Also, I understand that the UK government is now looking into extraditing the Tate brothers from the US to the UK directly to stand trial there.
Well, such complicated cases there. Matt Shea, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Now let's take a quick look around the world. This afternoon, the Vatican said Pope Francis's health took a sudden turn for the worst. The 88-year-old Pope has been dealing with respiratory issues and pneumonia in both of his lungs, and today he was treated for a bronchospasm, but the Vatican says he's still alert and responding to treatment. And things got very violent in Greece as protesters threw gas bombs and rocks at cops who shot tear gas, stun grenades, and water cannons at them. Hundreds of people took to the streets to protest their frustration with the government as its second anniversary of Greece's worst whale disaster hits. In 2023, 57 people were killed when a passenger train crashed head-on with a freight train. 2 Russian tourists died while scuba diving in the Philippines. Coast Guard officials say one drowned while the other was attacked by a shark and unfortunately lost his right arm there. 2 other tourists with him managed to swim back to their dive boat. And if you are a K-pop stan, do not kiss the K-pop stars without their permission. Cops in South Korea have summoned a Japanese woman over allegations she kissed Jin, a member of the K-pop boy band BTS, without consent. Now, this goes back to last June at a free hug event to celebrate the end of Jin's mandatory military service and the band's 11-year anniversary. Local media reported that the woman in her 50s kissed Jin on the cheek and blogged about his soft skin. Japanese police helped ID the lady, but she's reportedly refused to show up for questioning. Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Forget the Super Bowl and the NBA championship. There's another event people are placing big bets on this weekend, the Oscars. We are rolling out the red carpet to explain next. Stay tuned. I'm Gadi Schwartz. So yeah, real quick. You might want to look up tonight because there is going to be an epic planetary parade. That's when all the planets line up in their orbits around the sun. We get to see that. So we hope you enjoy that tonight. We'll see you here Monday. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.